Numbers that you can articulate for me, or can you just speak in general about, like how these crews, these task force deploying help out the fight?
Right. So generalized numbers, we have about six complete task force that are currently mostly in the southwest part of the state or the central part of the state. And we have about 10 different what we would call single resources. So a single resource would be like maybe a brush truck with two firemen are going to go out and help, or a water tender and a couple of people with that. So it's not a complete task force, where a task force might be made up of anywhere, like six to more firefighters having a brush truck, a water truck, other sort of equipment. So basically, they're equipped to be an actual fighting unit on the fire by themselves, where the single resources would be joined up with other resources when they get down to where they're going. So I don't have a specific number, so to speak, but we're clearly looking in close to the 50 plus or more firefighters from across state. And that's probably a low number. That's just pulling that out. So I wouldn't know for sure.
So, and then I appreciate that. So, like the task force I'd say yesterday, right? Olathe, there's some other districts in there. That's like a unit that they'll be working together. But then I know like KCK is having two special officers leaving this morning. So, like those two would be joining a unit, and then the other two, part of the task force, would be like helping as their own unit in their own way, however they can.
Like, exactly. So the two that you were just mentioned going out would be probably joining up and assisting somewhere else where the task force can actually be assigned to function themselves, where, they might be joined up with other, I can only imagine a firefighting line of, firefighters from different task force or whatever, all in one line trying to fight this. They're not just specified in one area. Some of them, multiple task force might be in fighting on the same current fire, just in different locations on the fire.
What so kind of like looking wider now, what are some of the challenges with fighting these types of fires, whether it's like, where they're located at, to be able to get there, and then just like the general challenges with just fighting wildfires in general, with high winds today too.
Right. So the weather is our number one issue when it comes to the relative low humidity. We are coming out of winter where a lot of the vegetation has died off and it's dead there, and so it's drying out with the low humidity. We have fire introduced, and it creates very fast burning fires. The winds then push that fire, and then anytime the wind changes directions, it's going to change the direction of the fire. So it may be burning one direction and all of a sudden go another direction. I believe it's the Stevens fire that started in Oklahoma yesterday, jumped over a highway essentially. And I was asked that question this morning, how does that happen? Well, it simply is just an ember flying in the air, being blown by the wind, landing on the other side, and then it just goes. And so that is one of the major problems. Another problem is getting in low-lying ravines where firefighters or task force members cannot get to help put the fire out. And so some of the areas it does get difficult to get to. If farmers or pasture owners haven't done maintenance on their fields previously, that does have a lot more fuel on the field. Some of the task force have maybe access to heavy duty equipment, construction equipment, and might try to blade out an area where the vegetation is and make it just bare dirt to help give it a stop line and hopefully prevent that from moving that way. So they're doing just about anything and everything they can to prevent the fire to continue to spread, but it's pretty difficult to do with the high winds.
I mean, there's the danger aspect, right? I know four smaller towns were evacuated out in western Kansas yesterday, but there's also the dangers with fighting these types of fires because of the weather element with it and kind of how quickly it can jump highways, right, with embers and stuff. So, speak to a little bit about the dangers and then like the dangers that those that are responding out there that are like the
Right.
front lines of this, just that,
So, clearly, I know there were several bad accidents. I-70 was shut down yesterday. Some of that was due to dust blowing, some of it was due to smoke from the fires. So you have the visibility is completely reduced or greatly reduced, making it difficult to drive for anybody. So this is one of the reasons why we would encourage people to not be on the road if they don't need to be out on the road. You run in, luckily the firefighters are going to be wearing some sort of air mask or something like that to help them breathe. But people who don't have that sort of equipment are breathing in all these fumes and smoke and stuff, and so it can get pretty nasty for people breathing in. The air quality goes down quite a bit, so that's something they need to be concerned with. I do know, not the specifics, but there was an injury rollover accident in Oklahoma with some firefighters where one of the firefighters' leg was broken and another one had third-degree burns on their body. And so those, they're racing to try to get ahead of the fire. I don't know what caused the accident, if a tire blew out or if the fire just got too close to them. It's not uncommon. So they take every precaution they can when they're fighting these fires and trying to get ahead of them to not put themselves in danger where they're too close to the fire to where they need to be rescued themselves.
So then having some crews from, the eastern side of the state, you mentioned low, you said probably low, but 50, but having like different types of crews responding with different types of gear is beneficial because it sounds very fluid, right? So you might not, whether it's rotating people in and out, whatever is needed for resource wise, it's kind of like the more stuff that we have, the better because you just might not know like any given minute, I guess.
Right. And these smaller communities in western Kansas, southwestern Kansas don't necessarily have the resources, the manpower to do that. So that's one of the reasons why we do the pre-staging and get the task force rolling. When we know the fire conditions are like this, and we work closely, our agencies, Kansas Division of Emergency Management, Kansas Forest Service, State Fire Marshal. We all work very closely together and are prepared for this. We pay attention to the weather forecast, and we were aware that this was a danger, right? And so we started getting people activated and getting, hey, can you be ready to go if we need you? And so they get there and they're ready to go. They take their equipment, they deploy, which much like the Johnson County Task Force did, and they headed out to a central location. And then when things start going bad, they get to that particular area. But that helps provide extra resources. We have interagency cooperation. They're all trained on incident command systems. So when they get there, it's just not a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing. They all know how to follow the incident command system. So there's one person out there that's in charge of that particular area, and they can function as an entire squad of firefighters, whether it's just the task force itself or if there's 50 or 60 people in one particular area. There's also air support that we're trying to, yesterday we couldn't get any of the air support up because of the winds, but they're trying to get some of those up today to help, maybe drop some water or some chemicals down on top of the fire to help suppress that as well. So there's a lot of challenges with it, but having them train, and they train year round for this. And so when it's time to happen, a lot of times we do stories on our water rescue teams or search and rescue teams going to other parts of the country, but the preparation also is beneficial for here in Kansas, and we're seeing that now.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I think you kind of talked about it a little bit there, but some of the crews that are coming from the eastern side of the state, where are they going to be reporting to be able to be deployed? I mean, is it kind
So,
of everywhere or what? Go ahead.
so they initially station at a central location in the state, and then as we start getting more information coming up, when the fire broke out, we'll say the Stevens fire broke out, and there's a ranger. I can't remember the exact Ranger Road fire in Oklahoma, and they spread up into Kansas. Then we start remobilizing them. But one of the things you need to be concerned with is driver fatigue. This is why we get them out there early. We don't want them driving from, the Kansas City area and having to do a 7, 8 hour drive, then to get out of the vehicle and start trying to do work. So we try to get them pre-staged so driver fatigue's not there. The equipment's had an opportunity to rest after a while. And then the coordination from our office, the state fire marshal's office, with these task force leaders. Each team has a task force leader, so there's communication going on with our emergency response chief and the task force leader to keep them up to speed. Hey, we know you're here. We thought you were going to do this, but now you're needed over here. Somebody else called and they need help, so we're going to redirect you to another. So they're very fluid and mobile. They understand this may be their task when they're sent out, but all of a sudden now they're doing something differently. So they're ready to do that.
Makes sense. I got just a couple more questions here for you. You talked about it two answers ago, just all the training that takes place with different departments here in the state, and oftentimes you go around the country, but now it's like it's a testament to like how that helps here locally as well. Talk about like the coordination between all these different, uh, fire municipalities that are able to like quickly respond and be able to send out, task force or if it's just a couple of people to help. Talk about how beneficial that is, and that's like a testament to them, but then also like the state being able to coordinate all that.
Right. So, we talk about Johnson County Task Force, and it's made up of various firefighters and equipment from different locations in the Johnson County area. So they do train together. They work well together. It's like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey. They know what each one is capable of doing, and so they have this good working relationship when they get out there. But then when they get joined up with somebody they may not train with so much, they still are fluid in being able to do that work because it's the same thing they're training all over the place. And with the cold weather spell we had here recently, I noticed a lot of our agencies across the state were doing water rescues or frozen, people falling through the frozen ice on a pond or a lake. So I saw multiple departments out training doing that. They weren't necessarily needing to do it for a rescue, but they were preparing themselves for that to happen. And so the training that they do in Northeast Kansas is going to mimic the training they do in Southwest Kansas, and they're going to be able to get together and work and do that and be able to rely on somebody. I can tell you, I have a law enforcement background, but having the luxury of having the confidence that the people that are coming to help you are going to be able to provide what you need helps you focus then on other things that you're trying to accomplish yourself. I don't
Uh,
know if I even answered your question. I apologize for that,
no,
but
no, you did. That makes no, it makes a whole lot of sense of just you did being able to like, having these crews come out that are training for it, but then they're able to come and then, some coordinations involved, but people know what they're
uh,
doing, so they're
yeah,
prepared.
one thing I want to add on that as well is because this is the Oklahoma-Kansas border, we're having to see a crossover there of task force working and they again it's a national framework. It's not Kansas specific, Oklahoma specific. So the people south of Kansas and Oklahoma, they know what the people north in Kansas are doing and they can work well together. As a matter of fact, they are working together on that, and that's why we have so many of our team down there on that border, as they can work well with those other agencies and other jurisdictions from the other states.
My last question would be for you. Is there other number wise? I know that it's 50 from around the state that are helping respond. Do you know like numbers of like boots on the ground now, like agencies down there? I'm sure that number is kind of included with it, but I don't know if you have
Right.
that.
That the number is it's very difficult. I went around and specifically asked that question, but it's hard to get a definitive answer. We know an agency, a single resource agency, might have sent three people, and some may have only sent two people when they go out with a fire brush truck or something to that effect. And so it's really hard to come up with a number, and that's really not something we'll probably be able to figure out till after we're done, and we can sit down and do an after action and actually be able because they're there to do their work and not necessarily give us a report of who all is there. We could probably sit down and figure that out, but that would take some time. So right now we need to focus on the other things, unfortunately, to do that. But let's just say there are a lot of resources from various different agencies across the state that's stepping up and doing it. And they do so because, next, in 2 months or next year, it may be Northeast Kansas that's going through a similar scenario. And so then Southwest Kansas is coming up and helping. And so the state fire marshal's office, that is one of the questions you ask is our emergency response division is we do hazmat and we do search and rescue. And so they coordinate this. So our chief of emergency response, Greg Balella, he has been tirelessly on the phone contacting all these task force leaders. And we know these people ahead of time. We just don't start calling the Olathe Fire Department and say, hey, do you have anybody that can be on the task force? They all train together, they work together, and they're prepared for this exact scenario and are ready to roll when it hits. So
Last two questions for you. The
okay.
first would be, is this numbers are out? I know, like you articulated well why you don't know numbers. Could you like say the last time there was a response this big that was needed from a statewide effort? If there's something that you could throw at me.
Yeah, I don't even know what that would be off the top of my head. Clearly that would have been before my time with the fire marshal's office when we had something like that, but um, it I would hesitate to even say a number because I probably wouldn't do it justice. It's so much more mind staggering than you would actually think. Like because so KDOT they sent 10 tenders, which are water trucks, down to down by the Oklahoma border. So when the brush trucks run out, because there's not fire hydrants out in the middle of a field, right? So when they run out of water, these tenders are there to reload them back up with water. So you got to take into account even all of that stuff that gets brought in that you may not even be thinking about as being part of this sort of response. But It's everybody. So I unfortunately I can't really give you a good number at all.
No, I totally understand. And then the last question, is there anything else that you want our viewers to know just about like the efforts that are going on from the state levels or anything else? It's all I had for you.
Just be aware of what's going on in your area. I know like we had to evacuate two different small towns, Inglewood and Ashland, and that was done. KHP has been very helpful in that, providing also potential air support, going up in the airplane and being able to look and see that what's going on. And so just be aware of what's going on in your area. You don't need to be out looky-looing or whatever you want to call it, trying to find, hey, see what's going on. There'll be enough coverage of this if you want to see the damage that was done and all that. Just sit in your home if you don't need to be out and about. Just, you know, make sure as the citizens you're not becoming part of a scenario where you interfere with what's being done by the first responders that are out there.